I've got a video dropping today of the psychology behind emails that print money. I think this is a really important point to touch on because a lot of people, especially in the e-com space, they're all pushing AI creatives, AI copywriters, and how to create things the cheapest way. Like this big shiny object syndrome, using as many AIs as possible. But they're actually forgetting the fact of how emails and how marketing actually works because they're leaving their critical thinking to AI, meaning that every single brand's marketing is coming all from the same place. So in this email, I'll be breaking down some famous marketers, all the psychology behind emails and marketing, and how you can actually make these things tick and ultimately create some more sales. So moving on, the inbox is a psychology battlefield. So as I'm sure you're aware, people's inboxes are getting bombarded. There's brands that are getting so aggressive that they're sending multiple emails a day. I know brands, and I've worked with brands as well. We're sending 3 campaigns a day along with their flows, which are also aggressive. These products that are kind of like the quick impulse buys, the $30, $40 ranges, people are sending crazy amounts of information. I've got this quote here as well. A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. So it's that kind of thing about drawing as much attention as possible in a world full of noise and information. So the average person is bombarded by so much stimuli. So they have Instagram, TikTok, text messages, so many things going on their mobile phone. Dopamine has been an overload. And me personally, I've cut a lot of this out of my life because I've just been noticing my attention drawing to other things. And I'm just not as focused and as clear thinking as I once was. So you can imagine someone who's deeply involved in this thing that they're not conscious about it. They're kind of just going through their day aimlessly. Attention is going to be massive if you're trying to capture their purchases and their custom. And to actually win the battlefield in the inbox, we want to be breaking as much patterns as possible. We want to be doing everything. You almost want to be doing the opposite of what every other brand's doing right now. So most brands are kind of using the fake urgency, all stuff like this to kind of get people on the website and obviously purchase. So you also have attention economics, which is ultimately the most valuable currency online, which is something I'm going to be leaning into as well. Even for myself as a personal brand, the more eyes I have on myself, it's ultimately going to convert into more stuff later down the line. So the more attention you can attract, the better this is going to be in this current online world. And then we also have the real life competition, which is what I call it. I think emails as well, people get kind of like sidetracked into you're just trying to win the inbox. But in reality, you're actually trying to win against Instagram, TikTok, the stress of the human being. You're trying to win against so many things that people just kind of forget. They're almost like just like a low level market is just thinking about emails, whereas you actually should be thinking about the big, like, grand scheme of things. I think curiosity is definitely something that a lot of brands should lean into a lot more because most people are all aware now that brands are sending a lot more information, they're sending free value, trying to get people to read their emails as much as possible, even if it doesn't mean converting them into a customer. So when you're actually like going ahead with like the curiosity, so you kind of like sparking them questions, like giving them reasons. So we almost didn't send this. These are just really like simple examples. You can obviously level them up to your brand and make them suit to that. But this changed our entire strategy. You made this one mistake before you buy. These are all questions that spark curiosity to ultimately get people to click, engage with your email, and actually hopefully walk towards getting that purchase. So I've been diving into a lot of like famous people in the past, psychologists, marketers. I think this is something a lot of marketers should actually start doing is like get out the mindset of just looking at YouTube videos, looking at what people are posting, and then kind of going down, these people that are kind of like building the philosophy behind marketing. So the psychologist George Lowenstein, he basically proved this thing where the brain hates unfinished patterns. So let's say, for example, you start telling a story, and you kind of stop right when it starts getting good. People have that kind of like, oh, I need to finish this out. It's exactly like when you're binging your favorite favorite TV series. When something good's happening, it gets on a cliffhanger. You kind of want to sit there and watch more. That's what keeps people engaged. It's all this kind of thing here, which a lot of brands are forgetting about. Again, leading on to that is the burning desire to know. Once you leave that subject line saying you've made this mistake, people have that desire to know what mistake have I made. Moving on to the next, why emotion is going to beat logic when it comes to email marketing. So there's a lot of brands I've listed here that you're probably not aware of their marketing techniques because Nike, for example, they're selling the identity of just do it. So they're kind of selling the motivation. It's not just about the shoes. It was never about the running times and things like this. It's about who you choose to become. So you almost kind of buy in your future self as someone that just does things. Apple, for example, they kind of sell status and simplicity because all their products are interchangeable. They're very easy to upgrade. And they also have that status thing where, if you have the latest iPhone, you're almost looked at as a little bit higher up because you have people that are like stuck on their phone contract from 3 or 4 years ago that they're still paying off. So if you have the latest one, it's almost like a status symbol. So when that new release comes, there's that automatic demand to go and purchase. I think Gymshark's a massive one as well because It's almost about building the community and like the influencer thing, and you're almost selling that transformation to be like your influencer. So these things here, it's all triggering emotions to be better and kind of have that status thing there. So the six emotional drivers are fear, status, belonging, relief, aspiration, and security. So all the others, these are the emotions that help to convert. The best emails don't sell products, they reinforce identity. And I think this is really important to know because if you take Rolex, for example, they only make X amount of these watches per year. So, for example, if you bought a 2020 watch, there's only going to be X amount of those made in that year. So, it's almost going to hold its value and it can also warrant the price that you're going to pay for it. So, there's going to be no discounting. People are happy paying full price. With that being said, what Rolex is actually selling is it's almost selling an achievement and it's also selling a status as well. So, you can also link this as well with a few other brands. So you have Harley Davidson as well, which they kind of sell freedom being on the bike, but they also have that rebellion side of things because most of these bikes are kind of related to, biker groups, bikies, things like that, where, people kind of strive to be in a club and, so forth. So you're almost saying that like camaraderie and that group thing. So the dopamine loop, I think it's actually important to mention as well. Like even Netflix have actually cottoned on to how the human brain's been evolving with all this dopamine spiking, and they're actually restructuring how they're filming movies. Because if you start watching films that are from like, the pre-2000s, everything how it's evolved is all changed with between people's attention spans. So building that dopamine loop is very, very important. So we can see here, like you tease the initial, you start building, and then you release, and then you repeat because people's attention spans are so short. You need to always be repeating. I think before it was something Netflix were mentioning, like they used to have like the main bit of the story that they would only repeat it once, but now they're having to repeat it 4 times. Don't quote me on this; it's around that. They have to repeat it 4 times for people to actually clock it because they're so like they're just not aware of what's going on around them. They're not focusing on their telly. They're on their phones. They're just not really able to pay attention for that longer period of time. So they're having to repeat things so many times. And I think this is going to be the same with email marketing because you're sending like 3 to 4 emails a week every time you're having a touch point with your audience. So the times you can keep repeating this cycle is going to help you stay on top of mind and just keep reinforcing that over and over again. Scarcity, loss, and urgency. These are some of the three biggest emotions that you can pull to get people across the line. But I would say stop using fake urgency because it is destroying your trust and it is destroying how people perceive your brand pretty indefinitely. But this is a really good quote here. So people fear or feel the pain more of losing something twice as intense as if it was if they was gaining something. So you can some of those real world examples we have, booking.com, there's only 2 rooms left. It kind of be like, oh shit, maybe I should book this if I need it. Amazon, there's only 3 left in stock. Low inventory is always going to win. And limited drops as well. So you've got Nike, Supreme, Palace, these kind of things which only drop like a certain amount of time. TJR, if any of you guys are familiar with him, he does the his fashion brand as well, which only drops like 3 or 4 capsules a year. So when that drop comes, people just jump on it because they know it's going to sell out quick. So these are some of like the biggest emotions that you can play on. But I would say again, just stop using this fake urgency that like, oh, you've only got so and so to take care of this. Your cart's going to run out when it's not, because people are aware of if things do sell out. If they don't, it's pretty obvious that most brands consistently stay in stock of most things all year round. This is a tough one between brand owners and marketers because a lot of the time brand owners, they're going to want their emails to be more focused on optimized for the brand, so looking nice, looking on point, and not structured for an attention. So I do agree with brand owners. You obviously want your email to replicate the brand voice, brand image, everything like this. However, you also must take into account, you do want to build it for optimization and attention, because I think there is a way of finding like a 50-50 balance of, hitting the brand and hitting the attention as well. But it's obviously just working with each other and building these things. So over-designed emails, so heavy templates, too much graphics going on. You can't really read the text. Font's too crazy. You're all trying to stay on brand too much. This can often distract people from the message and the actual goal of the email. Say, for example, like a plain text often converts higher than a designed email just because it breaks that pattern. It's something new, it's something fresh. But obviously over time, these things are going to get a little bit more saturated. Corporate language as well. And what I mean by this is not necessarily like how you'd speak in the corporate setting. It's more almost like how you would speak to your audience. So if your target audience is a 21-year-old man, you're going to speak to him a lot different than you would do to a 50-year-old bloke. These things don't really compare. You want to make sure that the language is on point and it's something your audience actually wants to read and how they would actually see themselves reading. So, if we said something like, we're excited to announce, you wouldn't imagine this doing well with an 18-year-old bloke, if that makes sense. No tension as well. This also comes back to storytelling. So great copy creates that kind of gap where the reader is like where they want to be, like in the future. Most emails, people are just going to skip this entirely. So you want to kind of build that tension up, get people feeling like this could be me in the future, this could be me in 3 months' time, selling that future self. And generic call to actions, I think this is a good one to mention. Like a lot of the time, people don't like to be sold to. You're more than likely going to close that sale if people feel like they've come to this conclusion themselves. So if you built up enough information or enough kind of backbone behind the email and it gets to the point of like, I need to buy this product, they're going to be more than likely to click a button that's like learn more or something along those lines. Like Shop Now is very, very forceful in terms of like pushing that sale. The philosophy of desire as well. So a lot of the time people desire this like future self, future body, future physique. And this thing is very contagious. Like the more they keep building it up, the more they want it even more. So say for example, influencers, take influencers, for example, they build and create desire and direct it through to the audience because people want to be them. Like, for example, the younger people looking at Gymshark athletes, they want to be in that physique. They want that life. They want to be, famous on Instagram, have this lifestyle. People, that helps them build this whole desire and the fact that they want to be like them. Social proof is another one which is overlooked. And this can actually be used in desire as well. So like 10,000 customers can't be wrong because if these 10,000 people have got the same results of what you want to get, almost just makes it like a no-brainer. Like, why would I not go and purchase this? Luxury brands as well, they sell this aspiration of the future self. So, they sell it like walking in a room. If you've got like this nice suit on, you're going to be looked at as a powerful status. If you've got the watch on, people are going to look at you and admire it, kind of think, oh, well, he's made something of himself. So luxury brands as well put on this trigger of desire too. Let's finish up on the future of email marketing. And to be honest, it's very unclear of where it's actually going to go. I see a lot of these new startup brands, they're using Claude Code to design their own emails. Even ChatGPT can do it to a pretty good standard as well. But it just means that the access to email is just crazy. People could be spurting out 2 to 3 emails a day at very, very low costs. But, it's going to be following that whole AI slop. And they're always going to look too generic, too polished, and it's just going to become invisible in the inbox. People are going to always almost be expecting what's going to come from it because there's no kind of out-the-box thinking. Like, I think this is also a really good point as well, that the marketers that truly understand that human psychology will have such a higher leverage than any tool can provide because, let's say, for example, Margaret's dog died, for example. If you was at work with her, you're going to know how to handle yourself around her, whereas opposed to a robot is just emotionless. We're able to pick up these emotions, actually put ourselves in the shoes of our ICP and understand these things that people might actually be thinking. I think this is a great point as well, that the marketers that truly understand human psychology are going to have such a bigger leverage compared to people trying to max out all these AI tools. If they're going to try and churn out 1,000 creatives a week compared to someone that's spending time, creating their, say, for example, 20 good creatives a week, they're always going to be in tune with their audience and know what their ICP actually wants. So we're going to be going through AI saturation, which means volume is going to go through the roof. We've already experienced this with creatives, like ad creatives. People are testing thousands a week. Average quality is going to be, even worse than what it is now. Differentiation is going to collapse as well. So you're going to have a lot of brands running the same kind of creative. It's all going to leak across each other. Because at the end of the day, to prompt half of these things to get your creatives, you're having to put examples of creatives in there so that AI can be trained. So you're more than likely going to be putting creatives from your competitors, brands you like. At the end of the day, it's all going to blend into one, and there's going to be no kind of like uniqueness to these designs. Secondly, you're just going to be losing human touch, tension, raw storytelling, and therefore it's just going to be becoming less valuable. And third, psychology is always going to win, and it's going to become more desired in the future because people's initial thinking is becoming slower and slower, relying on AI. And I'm hoping that you're not going to be in that position as well. I'm trying to limit things as much as possible and kind of get myself off the social media loop just to keep my brain on point and hopefully beat all these AI creations. But anyway, write less, feel more, convert everything. This is some of the biggest things I think is going to come to play with email marketing, and not enough people are talking about it right now. And I hope I can start kind of some trend. And this is something I'm going to be definitely very passionate about over the coming months, even coming years, just trying to keep this as humanly as possible because I don't really like computers. I don't want to see the world go to this way. And I'm sure you want your brand to win as well, which is going to be more important. So if you don't want your emails to look like every other AI and every other brand's emails, feel free to use the link below. There'll be a link to a Calendly where you can book a call with me and kind of see what we can do for your emails. If not, my website's there as well. You can check out a few more things. But if not, drop a subscribe, drop a like, and we'll catch you on some more psychology videos in the future.